What is up, everybody? It is JT Sports Match, you guys, with another video. This video, I'm here with another 7-round mock draft. This 7-round mock draft is going to be for the Cincinnati Bengals. For those of you guys who haven't yet, make sure that you guys go ahead and check out the 7-round mock draft playlist. I'm doing 7-round mock drafts for all 32 NFL teams. The playlist should be popping up in the card above. Also, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, upload NFL videos, NFL content daily. Also, make sure to share this video on your social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, with your friends, family, acquaintances, to help support the channel and spread the word of JT Sports. So for the Cincinnati Bengals, this is a very critical offseason for them because, first of all, you're in the toughest division in the NFL, in the AFC North, with the Steelers, with the Ravens, and you have the Cleveland Browns, which all three of those teams made it to the playoffs last year. So what is Cincinnati going to be able to do this offseason to catch up with the rest of the competition? Well, me personally, I think that Cincinnati needs to spend their first couple of draft picks in the upcoming 2021 NFL draft and use those picks to improve the offensive line, because I've been seeing a lot of people say that Cincinnati needs to draft more wide receivers and this and that. Listen, wide receiver isn't going to help keep Joe Burrow upright. They need to invest in the offensive line. And the Bengals had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. It was a pretty big reason why Joe Burrow wasn't able to finish out the season. And I know injuries happen and you can't control injuries, but you can't limit the amount of hits that your quarterback takes. So I think it will be in Cincinnati's best interest to use their first couple of picks when it comes to improving the offensive line. And I think they should use their 5th overall selection on offensive tackle Penei Sewell. Now, Penei Sewell is regarded as the best offensive tackle prospect in this draft class. He is a swing tackle. He can play left tackle. He can play right tackle. He can also play guard if you want him to. But I think if you draft him, you pair him up on the opposite side of Jonah Williams, I think you should have a pretty good offensive tackle tandem, and he should be able to tremendously be able to improve your offensive line. So I think Penei Sewell will be the more ideal pick with the 5th overall selection, not Jamar Chase, not another wide receiver. I think if you're Cincinnati and you're in the front office of Cincinnati, your number one priority should be to protect Joe Burrow. And if Cincinnati goes wide receiver with their 5th overall selection instead of selecting the offensive tackle, then Cincinnati Bengals fans, you guys should protest and you should ride, because that would be a really idiotic decision. I understand the decision to go wide receiver, but offensive tackle is more important because you need to be able to protect your franchise investment. With their 2nd round selection, 38th overall, I have them selecting the offensive guard out of Ohio State, Wyatt Davis. Now, Wyatt Davis is probably the most athletically gifted offensive guard in his draft class. He has great size. He's 6'4", 310 pounds, super athletic, very agile as well. This guy is a day one starter. So for Cincinnati, you could essentially have 2 starters on your offensive line right away if you go ahead and you select not only Penei Sewell, but you select offensive guard Wyatt Davis. So then you're going to have Jonah Williams on one side. You're going to have Penei Sewell at the opposite tackle position, and you're going to have offensive guard Wyatt Davis as well. Also, if you're able to get a couple of marquee signings in free agency, you could drastically improve your offensive line. Your offensive line can go from one of the worst in the NFL to probably you're sitting at above average to above average if you're able to manage the offseason the right way. And I think Wyatt Davis would also bring a tremendous boost to that Cincinnati Bengals offensive line, because you're getting a guy who is a mauler. He's great in run blocking. He's really agile. He gets to the 2nd level really fast. So I think Wyatt Davis will be another good selection with their 2nd round pick. With their 3rd round selection, I have them selecting Rodarius Williams. Now, Rodarius Williams, cornerback out of Oklahoma State, is the older brother of Cleveland Browns cornerback Greedy Williams. Now, he has very good technique. He's fundamentally sound. He's solid in his man-to-man and all cover skills. He also has very good length as well. The only downside about Rodarius Williams is the fact that his reaction time is kind of slow, and he tends to get beat on double moves pretty frequently. Now, Rodarius Williams, he is a guy who is more wait and see. You got to see what he can do once training camp begins, and then you can go from there. But for right now, I don't really know if he is a day one starter. I mean, he does have the potential to be a day one starter. It's just it's really hard to determine right now. We're more in wait and see mode with Rodarius Williams. I mean, he could be a day one starter. He could be more of a 1 to 2 year developmental project. But I think Rodarius Williams possesses a lot of upside for the fact that he has good length and he really is fundamentally and technically sound. So I think with their third round selection, 69th overall, I think Rodarius Williams would be a pretty good pickup because Cincinnati could use some more talent and some more depth at the cornerback position. With their fourth round selection, 112th overall, I have them selecting another corner, Cameron Bynum out of Cal. Now, Cameron Bynum is a sleeper prospect in this year's draft. He's probably one of the more underrated corners in this draft class. He has incredible instincts, good ball skills. He doesn't get beat often. I mean, I rarely see him get beat over the top by anybody. He's also a really good tackler as well, which is something that you don't see out of a lot of these new up-and-coming corners. You're starting to see more corners who are really good in coverage and don't really care about tackling. Well, Cameron Bynum is good in not only coach, but he's also a very good tackler as well. The only downside is that, one, he struggles against bigger wide receivers, so he'll struggle against your DeAndre Hopkins. He also has questions about his deep speed as well, but Cameron Bynum is a guy who I think could fill in nicely for Cincinnati because of the fact he has good instincts, good ball skills. He also doesn't really get beat all that often. So you bring in Cameron Bynum, this is also another guy who may be able to contribute day one for Cincinnati. Now, as we move into the later rounds, you're now drafting for upside. You're drafting for guys who could either provide great depth or have a lot of athleticism that can be honed in potentially, that they could develop into a pretty good player. And I think Kobe Whiteside fits that mold. This guy has very good athleticism, very good size. He's pretty fast for a D lineman. He could play nose, he could be a bigger DN, but Kobe Whiteside is pretty athletic. He's pretty agile for his size. I like him a lot. He could provide very good depth on that Cincinnati Bengals defensive line. With their 6th round selection, 190th overall, have them taking edge rusher out of Ohio State, Jonathan Cooper. Now, Jonathan Cooper is a really interesting prospect because he has a very elite first step. His first step is really good. He has good bend off the edge, and this guy is a really explosive edge rusher. Now, the downside of Jonathan Cooper is the fact that he doesn't have a lot of high football IQ, doesn't really have a lot of awareness, and on top of that, he's always out of position. Majority of the time, he tends to get thrown out of position, and he has poor pursuit angles. So you're looking at a guy in Jonathan Cooper who has all of the good raw traits that you're looking for. The athleticism is there. His size may be a little bit of a question. He's only 254 pounds, but I think he could be a pretty good edge rusher. The thing with Jonathan Cooper is, like, are you going to be able to develop this guy into a every down pass rusher, or is he going to be more of a situational pass rush? Can you combine that raw athleticism with some more technique and some more skills? Is the question with Jonathan Cooper. That is the big question, because if he was a little bit more, had some more football IQ, had more pursuit, or was better in his pursuit angles, then he probably could be a round 4, round 3 projected player. But for right now, he's pretty much projected to go between round 5 and early round 6. So I think if you're Cincinnati, you're getting a guy who has a lot of upside, has a lot of potential athletically, but it's just all about improving his fundamentals, improving his technique, and he could improve his football IQ and his awareness with more repetition and more snaps in practice. So I have Jonathan Cooper out of Ohio State going 190th overall in the 6th round to the Cincinnati Bengals. With their 7th round selection, I have them taking defensive lineman Austin Falu out of Oregon. Now, he is a very agile pass rusher. He's really fast. You don't really see a lot of defensive linemen move the way this guy does. He has a high motor as well. Reminds me a lot of Tristan Hill out of UCF a couple of years ago, who got drafted by the Dallas Cowboys a couple of drafts ago. The downside with him is the fact that he doesn't have many pass rush moves, but this guy shows a lot of effort, doesn't give up on plays, he's one of those players who plays through the whistle, if you want to call it. Has a high motor, doesn't give up, and he could develop into a pretty good backup if he's able to get a spot on the roster. But this is more of a guy who you bring in as more of a training camp body just to see what he can do. Maybe he makes the roster, maybe he makes practice squad or not, but I think this is a guy who does have the potential to be a pretty good backup for Cincinnati. Now, with their 235th overall selection in this draft, I have them selecting wide receiver Jalen Vigil out of Appalachian State. Now, he is a very agile wide receiver, very quick, has very good footwork as well, very good hands, but he needs to improve his route running. His release is also a little bit shaky as well. So he's a good developmental wide receiver. Pretty much what you expect out of a round 7 wide receiver. A guy who shows a lot of athleticism. But like I said earlier with Jonathan Cooper, needs to be more technically sound. That's kind of the same thing with wide receiver Jalen Vigil. His route running needs work. He also needs to work on his releases. But he could provide some good depth at the wide receiver position. He could be a pretty good slot receiver if he's able to be developed properly by the coaching staff for Cincinnati. So this is it for my Cincinnati Bengals 2021 7th round mock draft. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comment section.